All right, today we're going to talk about something that sounds like it's straight out of a sci-fi movie. We're going to look at the history, the wild physics, and the insane global power that's packed inside a single building in Taiwan. You heard me right. It's probably the most important piece of real estate on the entire planet, and we're about to find out exactly why.
I mean, just think about it for a second. The device you're watching this on right now, imagine it just stops working, becomes a dead slab of glass and metal. And it's not just your phone. Imagine the global banking system just vanishes overnight. GPS goes dark. Hospital equipment flatlines. This isn't some crazy dystopian movie plot. No, this is the knife's edge reality of our 21st century world.
So, how is that even possible? How could our whole civilization grind to a screeching halt all because of one building? I mean, how did we let our entire way of life get balanced on a foundation that's literally measured in atoms, all tucked away inside one kind of building in one very specific spot on the map?
Well, that building is what's called a semiconductor fabrication plant, or a gigafab. It's run by a company you might have heard of, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or just TSMC. Now, from the outside, it doesn't look like much, just a giant, windowless box, really. But inside it is the absolute single most critical choke point in the entire global supply chain, period.
And let me be super clear about this. If the lights in that one building were to go out tomorrow, our entire globally connected economy, it wouldn't just stumble, it would completely shatter. So yeah, how in the world do we get here? How do we end up putting all our chips, and I mean that quite literally, in one basket?
So, to really get this whole silicon shield thing, you've got to know about the guy who basically invented it, Morris Chang. See, for decades, the rule in the world of computer chips was simple. If you designed a chip, you had to build a factory to make it. Companies like Intel, for example, they owned the whole process from start to finish. And that process was crazy expensive and super rigid.
And this is where Morris Chang's genius just changes everything. He looked around and saw all these brilliant designers with amazing ideas for chips, but they had no way to make them because they couldn't afford the billions of dollars for a factory. So, his solution? He created what's called a foundry. It was a company that would only make chips for other people. They wouldn't design a single one themselves. You know, people ironically called it the company that makes nothing. But by making nothing of its own, TSMC became the quiet, absolutely essential partner for everyone. Apple, Nvidia, you name it. It completely opened up the floodgates for innovation and let them focus on one thing, becoming the best chip manufacturer on the planet, by a long shot.
So what's the big deal? What actually makes this one factory so incredibly special? To get that, we have to go inside. And I'm telling you, the scale of what they're doing in there, it's where science starts to feel a lot like magic.
Okay, let's try to get some perspective here, because the numbers are gonna get wild. Take a single human hair. It's about 80,000 nanometers thick. Just try to picture that. Got it? Hold that number in your head.
Okay, now, let's shrink down. Way down. A single strand of your own DNA, that's about 2.5 nanometers wide. We are now talking about the literal building blocks of life.
So you're probably seeing where this is going. Right now, TSMC is printing circuits that are just 2 nanometers wide. That's smaller than a strand of DNA. We are manufacturing things at the scale of just a few molecules. And when you get that small, the normal rules of physics, they just start to break.
I mean, for example, they have to deal with this completely bizarre thing called quantum tunneling. It's a real phenomenon where electrons can literally just teleport through a solid barrier. Poof! Because the wall is just too thin to stop them. It's like a ghost walking through a wall, but for real. And to control that, you need some of the most complex machines humanity has ever conceived. And that machine is the key. The whole process is called EUV lithography, and it happens inside a single machine that costs $200 million a piece, made by only one company in the world, a Dutch company called ASML. And what it does is just mind-boggling. Get this, inside a perfect vacuum, a tiny drop of molten tin is falling. A super high-powered laser zaps that droplet 50,000 times a second, turning it into plasma. That plasma then flashes, emitting a special kind of light called extreme ultraviolet light. Then the flattest mirrors ever created by human beings guide that light to print the circuit onto a silicon wafer. It's an absolute miracle of engineering, and yeah, TSMC owns more of these things than anybody else. Okay, so you've got this impossible, incredibly delicate process. So the next logical question is, why on earth would you do it here?
Why build the most precise factory in human history on an island that's famous for earthquakes, right in the middle of one of the world's biggest geopolitical hotspots? Well, the great paradox is that those very same challenges, the constant threat of instability, might be what forged the culture of extreme precision and resilience that made them number one.
And you have to understand, the factory itself is really just the finish line. It's completely dependent on this fragile global marathon of supplies. They need ultra-pure neon gas that comes all the way from Eastern Europe. They need special light-sensitive chemicals from Japan. But maybe most important of all, it relies on what people call a talent fortress. We're talking about a whole society, an education system, that for decades has been laser-focused on producing the most specialized engineers in the world. It's this insane, intricate web, and it creates a kind of mutually assured destruction for the supply chain. Everybody needs it to work, so nobody can afford for it to break.
Okay, and all of this is where it leads to a really fascinating and honestly a pretty dangerous idea. What if this incredible dependency isn't just a weakness? What if it's actually become a kind of weapon, a deterrent?
It's called the silicon shield theory, and the idea is pretty simple and pretty brutal. It says that any attack on Taiwan that stops those chips from flowing would be an act of immediate economic suicide, not just for the rest of the world, but for the attacker too. That one building, in effect, becomes a more powerful deterrent for keeping the peace than 1,000 tanks.
And this dependency, it's absolute. It doesn't matter if we're talking about the phone in your pocket, the most advanced military hardware, or the giant AI data centers that are building our future. Every single major global power is critically, fundamentally reliant on the chips coming out of that one island. If they stop, China's entire tech sector collapses. The US military's technological edge? Gone. Just like that. So, not surprisingly, the rest of the world has finally woken up to this massive vulnerability. And right now, there's a frantic multi-billion-dollar race to de-risk, basically to build their own fabs. The US is doing it, Europe, Japan, everybody wants their own version of the one building. But the real question is, can you actually export a miracle like this?
I mean, let's just do a quick thought experiment. What happens if TSMC just goes dark? Day one, the just-in-time global supply chain snaps. Tech stocks just plummet. Week one, the entire global auto industry grinds to a halt. Mass layoffs begin. By month one, you can't buy a new phone or laptop to replace a broken one, and cloud services start getting shaky. And by month 6, we could be looking at a great tech regression where critical infrastructure, power grids, banking starts to fail. It would be a complete and utter global economic catastrophe. And this is exactly why it is so incredibly hard to replicate. It's not just about throwing money at the problem. Even though, yeah, building one of these fabs in the US or Europe is way more expensive, the real problem is that you can't just snap your fingers and replicate that talent fortress or the super dense, hyper-efficient network of local suppliers they've built over decades. You know, by the time a new fab in Arizona finally starts making today's cutting-edge chips, Taiwan will already be working on chips that are 2 generations ahead.
You know, this whole situation kind of forces us to step back and ask a deeper, more philosophical question. How did we let our entire global civilization become so dangerously dependent on a single point of failure? It really seems like in our endless, relentless pursuit of efficiency and making things cheaper and faster, we've accidentally built a world that is unbelievably powerful, but at the same time, terrifyingly brittle.
And really, that's the big question I want to leave you with. We love to talk about the cloud, as if our digital world is this magical, ethereal thing. But it's not. It is physically tethered to the ground, to a very real, very physical building on one specific island. As long as the lights stay on in that building, our world works. But that shield is incredibly thin, and it forces us all to ask, in building this amazingly powerful and interconnected world, did we forget to make it resilient?